The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And it is Friday in the Riv, a big Friday. We got a whole boatload of stuff to talk about. So let's get Admiral COVID and get the COVID numbers.
The COVID numbers as of yesterday, 545,624 total cases, 1,928 new cases. 15,657 total deaths, 33 new deaths, 55,346 for Bristol County. And for Fall River, we have 131 new cases since 2/18/21, averaging about 19 daily cases, which brings us to 12,184 with 8 new fatalities since 2/18/21. And so now we have 316 fatalities.
Well, you know, the numbers are going, they said the numbers are going down. Massachusetts is going to open Fenway Park. And, you know, Benito Baker is talking about opening up some stuff. So it's about time, since Massachusetts, as we said, is among the 4 states with the highest per capita deaths. California, New York, Massachusetts, and Little Rhodey. Those are the 4 that have the greatest amount per 100,000 population. So apparently the blue states did it wrong again. All 4 of them are blue states. The places that opened up and let their businesses survive and didn't lock people up with as cruel and unusual punishment, they did better. But we got so much we got so much today. We got the superintendent, we got the school issue. I don't even know where to begin. I know that the report has been leaked. That's one of the new big news. The report was leaked, and but not the full report. There was a story on it. I guess, CJ, you were discussing before we went on the air, so I'm going to have to read that story. But you know, it basically says he said a lot of things. We got all these other letters, and you know, the bottom line is this letter proves one thing, that we need to question the actions of the school committee. You know, I think that the question of whether the superintendent of schools should remain as superintendent of schools has long been answered. I think the majority of people in Fall River realize that he should be gone. He got run out of Swampscott. He got run out of Brockton. He got run out of another place too. He should be run out of Fall River. And I know that they're sending letters. Everybody's sending letters. This is like the letter. This is the letter writing contest now. I guess Malone sent out letters and said he's not resigning. Of course he's not going to resign. He realizes he's never going to work in education again. There's not another Fall River in this country. This is the only place a guy like that could get hired in the first place and remain on the job. He's got run out of every other city he's been in, city and town. He'll never work again. Of course he's going to push those 4 for a contract extension, because that's the last paycheck he'll ever get as a superintendent anywhere with his record. I mean, this is absurd. I'm not resigning. Oh, of course you're not going to resign. Where are you going to go to work? The next place you apply to, saying, I got canned in Swampscott. I got canned in Brockton. The people came after me with pitchforks and torches in Fall River, and I went out of there with my pants on fire. You want to hire me? And every other word's the F-bomb. And that report says he used inappropriate language, but there's no proof. I don't know, sexual harassment. Well, we do have proof. We have, well, there are allegations, but obviously if they're going to go to court, we're going to see. And he wrote a letter of apology about everything. He didn't say I didn't do it. He said I apologize. So I think that's been put aside. But this absurdity, he's going to write letters to people. I'm doing a great job, and I'm not going to resign. Of course, he's not going to resign. Think about it. But you know who's going to keep him employed? The Gang of Four. That's why the Gang of Four, who all benefited from, in one way or another, or at least three we know of, or could benefit, the motivation for keeping somebody like this in our school system has to be, that's the new investigation that has to be run.
Yeah, and when we look at the fact that we have problems with the new Durfee High School, which have been acknowledged almost immediately after our show, by the way. Just coincidence, that's all. That was just a coincidence. It seems that the school department has a lot more problems than just the new school. And this report, by the way, was authored by attorney Wendy Chu, and she identifies 15 witnesses questioned during the investigation between September 25th and October 19th, including Malone, on whether the superintendent violated the school district policy on harassment, bullying, sexual harassment, and staff conduct. Now, the interesting part about this is what's contained in the report, all right? Wendy Chu felt that because the bullying policy within the school department does not apply to employees, it only applies to students. He did not violate any policy there. He did it, and we know he did it, but he didn't violate a policy because the school department doesn't have it included in their policy that employees need to be held accountable for that. So, members of the school committee, I would suggest that you immediately, do not hold this for discussion. Immediately, take the policy that applies to students and apply it to school department employees immediately. This is showing where you're failing the system, and this is where you fail.
Well, technicality. So there, I think we found the technicality they're going to try to use.
Right.
Said he didn't technically violate a policy because that's about bullying students. Well, I hate to tell you this. I hate to tell the school committee this, but there are anti-bullying policies in federal law. Hostile work environments are not allowed. Bullying and badgering employees is not allowed in the workplace. There are already laws. You don't need a policy in the school. They're going to use a technicality to get this clown off, to allow him to sexually harass, to demean people with handicaps, to practice age discrimination. I hate to tell the school committee this. I don't know how far their heads are up their derrieres, and they're going to use this little technicality, and therein lies the question, why? Why are you going to use the technicality? That's like the guy who killed 28 people in McDonald's years ago and got off because the police didn't Mirandize him properly. This is what's wrong with the technicality crap, because this is what they use to get guilty people off. The man killed 28 people, men, women, and children, and got off because he wasn't Mirandized. So now you're going to tell me that it was okay for somebody you're paying $200,000 to create a hostile work environment? If that's the way you think, and you're going to use that technicality, you shouldn't be sitting in that chair. And add to that you all got something for it. You got a problem with those four. That's why I think the problem with the school committeemen who are trying to keep him on a job is a bigger problem than the superintendent, because we all knew before he got hired, and we talked about it on this show, that he was a bum, that he was prone to abusing people and harassing people, but they still hired him. Therein lies the problem at Fall River. And we got to find out why they're covering for him. And therein lies the problem. Now we know, just with that little piece of a report, I can tell you what they're going to say. Well, you guys don't have all the faith. He didn't violate any policy. Yes, he did. Not a policy. He violated laws. Sexual harassment in a workplace is illegal. Creating a hostile work environment is illegal. But now you're going to use the technicality? Nice try. Everybody out there that wants to run for school committee, contact CAG. We're going to start lining up candidates to run for these public offices, because if this government is going to allow this to happen, we cannot allow the people who would provide cover for this. This is gone.
Here's a very interesting thing. Malone has a claim. Malone claims are against the mayor. The report indicates that during the investigation, Malone offered a theory to Attorney Chu that Mayor Paul Coogan was responsible for the complaints filed against him in order to terminate him as superintendent. Quote, Malone believes the mayor is unhappy with him because he challenged the mayor during school committee meetings about the school budget, and the mayor's concerned that this will be used against him by potential challenges to his re-election bid. In the report, Chu dismisses Malone's assertions that Coogan had a role in staff complaints. So it's interesting. Now, in regards to the sexual harassment complaint that you talked about, of the policies, Chu's findings indicate that she concluded only one of the complaints against Malone violated the harassment policy. However, his overall behavior towards other complainants did violate the district staff conduct policy. Many of the allegations against Malone have been substantiated, even if they were not found to have been in violation of a particular policy, wrote the investigator. The harassment complaint that they found is when he called a particular staff member with physical disabilities identified in the report as being a frequent target of Malone, whom he would often refer to as a moron, idiot, retarded, apparently short for retard, F up, and S fingers. That means feces fingers. Virtually all of the witnesses I interviewed revealed hearing what Malone used one or more of these certain terms in reference to staff member at least once, and the majority stated that they had heard him do so numerous times. So that's the harassment complaint that's being substantiated.
Well, see, here again we get into the nuances of these investigations, and when you get somebody to make a recommendation, when you pay for a study or an investigation, you see, I want to know who hired this person. Was it the Gang of Four? Because obviously I'm listening to you, and as someone who spent a lot of time dealing with those kinds of things in a labor scheme, I hear this. This is a con job. A policy wasn't violated. A policy wasn't violated. A policy. Well, that's a school policy. Oh, staff isn't included. Well, there are other things. Because if you look at things, sometimes it says, well, if any rule or policy is violated or any other law in most places, you're bound by it. You swear to uphold the damn Constitution and the law, not only of Fall River, the state constitution, the national constitution, when you're sworn into office. And the reality is that this isn't about just policies. This is about stuff that's prohibited by law. Sexual harassment. Well, he didn't technically, the sexual harassment isn't part of the policy. This isn't part of the policy. No. This is about a policy that you created for students and not the faculty. But there are other laws, and even the canon of reasonableness that would say this guy is not qualified to be a superintendent. He's not been found not guilty by that report. He's been found that he didn't violate a policy in some regards, but they don't say he didn't. Sexual harassment, well, it's technically according to the policy. These are all technicalities. It's like trying to get a murderer off. Well, I don't know. If there's nothing in a policy about murdering anybody, is there? So I guess if he murdered somebody, what the hell? It's not in a policy. You can murder somebody. You can sexually harass people. It says in a report, he said that was somebody he was sleeping with. This is the one people say I'm sleeping with. Is that appropriate for a superintendent of schools? I mean, this is absolute BS. You know, even this report is distorted because they focus on whether he violated school policy. No, he violated federal law against harassment, against workplace environments, against age discrimination. And you're bound to uphold those laws too, not just school policy. But we see a glaring hole in what kind of school department we have that has a policy for students. But in this day and age, where there's all kinds of litigations about violations for sexual harassment, gender identification suits, that you wouldn't have I don't know what place doesn't have a policy about workplace environment. I don't know about the school department, CG. I know in a fire department, we used to have to read every year, it was mandatory that you had to read the sexual harassment policy to every single member of the department. And I know they do it in the police department, and I'm sure they do it in every other department. But we had to go over the sexual harassment policy for the employees. So you're telling me that the school department does not do that? Well, what the hell is the school committee doing? They don't have that? They don't have a sexual harassment policy for the employees? So you can go around and sexually harass anybody you want, tell use improper language, use sexually charged jokes, tell all kinds of jokes. And what happens? Nothing? There's no policy? Well, I know the city of Fall River, which I think the school department does have a sexual harassment policy. They do have a policy about workplace environments. Just call HR. So this is all BS. I've never seen such cover-ups as I've seen with this school department. That's the problem with making them education reform, making them autonomous. They've created their own fiefdom. This is BS. And as far as that allegation about Coogan because he did something in front of the city council, listen, that's just an allegation again. I think that probably the mayor should answer that. But remember, the mayor spent his life in the school department. He understands the mechanisms of school departments. And to say that because he disagreed with him, that's why he wants them terminated, frankly, I'm going to give my personal opinion on this one. I've known Paul Coogan for a long time, and I disagreed with him on a lot of occasions. Well, Paul Coogan worked in the school department his entire life, basically. And I believe if he's not happy with the superintendent, it's because of his performance, not because they disagreed on something. I think he has the credentials in that field. I may not think he's made a lot of leadership decisions that I agree with as the mayor. But I know that he has enough. It's like asking you about the fire department rather than me, or asking me rather than you about a medical issue.
Right.
We have our areas. Paul Coogan was a lifetime educator. And I think if they have a disagreement, I would not. I think that's Malone trying to cover his derriere. I don't believe that's the issue here. I think there may be a lot of other issues, but the fact is, I don't think it's because he disagreed with a city council meeting. Because, like I said, I disagree with the mayor a lot. We have a lot of long and very lively conversations. But I don't think I don't think that's a fact. And I think that has to be and I hope that he responds to this. And but because we've got a problem with lack of response or over response. So with the superintendent, that's all I think unless you want to wrap it up or something, I think we should move on to the school, because I think that's a really important issue here.
Well, I agree. We know we have 5 lawsuits pending now from MCAD, and now the superintendent is threatening one. He says, and I quote him, "Privileged, protected information has been leaked outside of the process. That is where there will be a follow-up, because it is not the way it's done," said Malone. "We have executive session and personal and privacy rights and agreements and contracts for a reason." But Malone does state that he caused this distraction. Well, if Malone's going to file a lawsuit against the city for this, albeit he holds that he did not fire anyone because of any complaints or anything. He says he fired them or replaced them because of their performance. Attorney Chu agreed with him on that. I'm having some problems with this report altogether. But as more of this report is disclosed, I think we'll have more conversations about it. I think one of the issues I want to bring up now, let's get away from the school department and the school committee. Let's move on to the fire department and DCM.
Oh, geez. All right, man.
I know, kind of a rapid change, Recent commentary by firefighter Jason Burns regarding the DCM denial of services, unless directly requested by the chief, which appears to be a new policy. Mr. Burns believes that this was because of his comments regarding the DCM director's raise and the lack of a contract for the firefighters. You decide. Jason Burns on December 2nd published to the city council, "Dear Honorable Council, please find attached a salary." Oh no, this was from the mayor, from the salary change. And then Jason Burns commented, "Show me your budget and I'll show you your priorities. I have no doubt that Mr. Perry is a talented and valued employee. So this actually makes me excited to see what the city's new contract offers to the firefighters is. Until now, we, L 1314, have been offered less than the crumbs that can be found around City Hall. There's nothing like being appreciated for the work you do." That's all the comment that he made. And according to Jason Burns, DCM has said they're not going to provide them with salt, sand, or any stuff that they need unless it's requested by the chief. What's your opinion on that? You're the firefighter.
Well, number one, I have no problem with what Burns said. Obviously, if you're he's no longer speaking, I believe, as the president of the union. That comment was made. He's no longer the president. But
right,
as a union guy, look, I don't have any problem with obviously pointing out that you don't have a contract. I mean, we all did that. That's your job. I mean, and I'm always pointing out the pay raises that all the administrators get, while our police, fire, and DCM and every other worker gets crumbs. And I think he was complimentary toward him. And I don't know where Perry's coming from, but that's absurd. But I can tell you that I don't know what the issue is. And I can't, because he said the chief. The reality is that whenever we called for salt or something like that, we were at a fire in the middle of the winter and we had ice all over the place, and we had to, firefighter safety, civilian safety, taking down ladders with ice all over them and ice all over the ground, you always call for sanding and salting and stuff like that in an area. And it's always a chief who calls anyway. It's the chief who's running the fire. I called for the stuff all the time. So I don't know whether Perry was. See, that's the thing. You can't try to interpret it. I don't know what that was. I don't know whether he's saying it like the chief of the fire department, who's home sleeping at 2:00 in the morning, while a district chief's running a fire in the middle of February or January. But I mean, that was always the protocol. People just don't call for the truck. It's the incident commander. Now, granted, there are circumstances where maybe a lieutenant might call for it if he's at like a car fire or something like that, and then they end up getting some water or there's a hazardous condition, and he may call for something from DCM. But in that case, he is the incident commander because he's the only one at the incident. But in reality, for major stuff, a chief is always the person who calls. Chief calls, radios, fire alarms, says contact DCM. We're going to need some. We need some ice mitigation here, or we need something else, or we need something picked up. We got debris all over the street. Have them come over here and get ready to remove some of this debris. I mean, that's just a standard operating procedure. So I think Perry was way off base and trying to like retaliate. I don't know why, because he said he did a good job, and he pointed out, which is, in a spirit of real, that's what unions do. I never disparaged other unions, but if somebody else got a pay raise or all the city administrators and all the big appointees got pay raises and I didn't, I'd be raising holy hell too. I can't, I can't fault them for that. I mean,
and that's your job.
And I think it was appropriate. The comment was appropriate. Like I said, he didn't disparage anybody. That's nuts. But let's get quickly, because we're running out of time. We got to say, I want an independent investigator to come and investigate the public school complaints. Did you notice that now the entire roof is being replaced? They sent out a letter. So You know what that begs the question? The roof, was it patched? Was it still leaking? And by the way, mold just doesn't go on 2 feet of sheetrock. It was pouring down the bays. They got moisture. You could have mildew mitigation. You need an independent, not somebody the city, not somebody the school department or that contractor. You think I'm going to take the contractor's word that everything is all right? And I'm not going to take the mayor's right that everything's perfect. I want to see an independent guy that says, look, these are the complaints that were cited in that letter. Do you believe that they appropriately addressed mold mitigation with the amount of moisture that was put in those walls? And that's where, and all the other complaints that were filed. I think we really need for the taxpayers to feel that $263 million is being spent and we're going to get a decent building. I believe that we need somebody to independently come in and say, well, they should have done this, or it's fine. And then everybody can rest easy. I'm not taking their word for it. You had a mold issue. You had a mold issue, and so did I. I had a leak because of a construction problem on an addition I put on my house, and they had to take the roof off, let it dry. And every part of that was exposed. Those ceilings, the walls, they stripped your walls. You know it. So we're wrapping it up, and Monday we'll get into this in more depth. But I'm telling you, I am not happy. I am not satisfied. And I think that the fact that after all this time, they're replacing the roof completely shows that they didn't do it in the first place. And I don't know if they would have ever done it if they didn't get exposed.
And again, is it being replaced? And there are other complaints in that letter that I haven't heard about, but the mayor has acknowledged that there was a problem. He sent out a press release and that briefly acknowledged that there was a problem. So it's interesting to see. Well, we're out of time. It's the weekend. I want to thank you for watching. Have a great day. Remember, stay safe, stay angry, wear a mask, and hold your politicians accountable. Have a great day.